Hello everyone, my name is Maria from nursingpersonalstatement.co.uk, and in this video we are going to be talking about everything agency nursing. Why? Because agency nurses are such an integral part of the healthcare industry, often filling unfulfilled vacancies in the efforts to provide safe and effective care. I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of, may have met, may have even worked with an agency nurse, an agency doctor, an agency healthcare assistant, an agency physiotherapist, and I'm sure some of you guys may even be thinking of becoming an agency nurse in the near future. It can be a fulfilling career, but like other careers and roles within the healthcare industry, it does come with its advantages and its disadvantages. In this video, I'm going to tell you what an agency nurse is, how much an agency nurse makes, how to become one, how the role of an agency nurse differs from the role of the traditional salaried registered nurse, and then I'm going to end with one advantage and one disadvantage of working as an agency nurse. So what is an agency nurse? An agency nurse is the same as any other registered nurse. The difference is that they work on a locum basis through an agency. Think of an agency nurse as a freelance worker. An agency nurse is a registered nurse who is not tied down to a particular worker. Rather, some agency nurses are self-employed and assigned to work at certain hospitals, at certain trusts on a short-term basis, on a short-term contract. So what does this look like? How does this actually work? A quick example, an agency nurse may work a shift at this hospital on Monday, a shift at Trust B on Tuesday, she may go back to Trust A on the Wednesday, and then on the weekend she may work at Trust C on the Saturday and Sunday. That doesn't mean she was employed by any of the trusts. She wasn't employed by Trust A, by Trust B or Trust C. She was simply contracted to work there. The agency is just the middleman, and when I say the agency is just the middleman, what I basically mean by that is that a particular agency just helps to connect the customer, i.e. an individual, a private hospital, an NHS trust, with the provider, i.e. the agency nurse or the agency doctor or the agency healthcare assistant. Agencies don't just exist for nurses. You have agencies for doctors, agencies for healthcare assistants, agencies for physiotherapists. It goes on and on and on. Because when you think of the main reasons why a customer, i.e. an individual client or a private hospital trust or an NHS hospital trust, when you think of the reasons as to why the customers, want an agency nurse to work with them short term, it's often to fill unfulfilled vacancies. For example, they may have advertised a post for a band 6 nurse to join them. The band 6 nurse says, yeah, on the 1st of January, I'm going to join you, and then last minute she pulls out. That trust is one nurse down and they need a nurse to fill that vacancy. Or it could be maybe a ward has 26 members of staff, and they've realized that in order for the trust or for that ward to run in a safe and to continue to provide safe and effective care, they need to have at least the bare minimum 8 shifts, 8 nurses on every shift. But then if one nurse calls the night before and then another nurse calls and says, I'm sick, I can't come in, it means they only have 6 nurses. So in order for them to get a nurse very quickly, a lot of customers will go with a nursing agency. So you can find the same situation with doctors, like I've said, healthcare assistants and physios. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm not a registered nurse, but I really want to work with an agency within the healthcare industry because I know there are a lot of advantages, don't worry, you can go as a doctor if you are a doctor, or you can go as a healthcare assistant if you are a healthcare assistant, or you can go as a physio if you are a physiotherapist. So agencies don't just exist for nurses, they exist for almost every single role that you'll find in the healthcare industry. I want to mention one thing that agency nursing is not. Agency nursing is not a field of practice. In the UK, we have 4 fields of nursing practice, all of which require you to become a registered nurse with the NMC before you can actually practice in the UK. And they are child nursing, adult nursing, mental health nursing, and learning disability nursing. Agency nursing is not one of them. You will never find a degree in the UK that says, hey, join us and do a 3 or 4 year degree to become an agency nurse. No. Agency nursing is just the means by which a registered nurse may choose to become employed. You have salaried nurses who are employed by a particular trust, a particular organisation to work on a permanent basis, and then you have agency nurses who are not employed by a particular trust or a particular organization. They just work with particular trusts or organizations on a short-term temporary basis. And then you have some nurses who are both salaried nurses and agency nurses. So they are nurses who do both. They may work full-time, or they may be employed full-time by this particular NHS trust or by this particular private organization, and then maybe on their days off they may work as an agency nurse within different trusts and within different organizations, or maybe even with an individual client. So how much do agency nurses make? I can tell you, agency nurses on average make a lot more than salaried nurses. I don't want to misquote anything, so I'm going to read directly from the notes that I've taken. According to Reed, it is £38,943. They're saying that's on average how much agency nurses make, but the figures do vary. According to Adzuna, it's £51,103. But from what I've seen in practice, in terms of conversations that I've had with different agency nurses and how much money they make, I can tell you the figure is closer to the figure quoted by Adzuna, and that is £51,103. Agency nurses oftentimes get paid more than, you know, £25–30 an hour. Agency nurses making £400 a shift, £500 a shift, £800 a shift is not unheard of. But let me tell you very quickly that the higher rates of pay, the higher salaries are reserved for nurses with in-demand skills. So nurses who have, you know, been working as nurses for several years, have acquired a lot of skills that are in demand. If they work in a certain location, for example, if they work in bigger cities like Birmingham, in London, you're going to attract higher rates of pay. Equally, if you work on sociable hours, for example, if you're working on bank holidays such as Christmas, New Year's Day, if you're working weekends with an agency, you're going to make a lot more money than a nurse with maybe 6 months worth of experience, is not working in a bigger city and is not working an unsociable shift. So yes, agency nurses make a lot of money. They make way more money than salaried nurses. However, it is because a lot of them will have more skills, or in theory have more skills, are working on sociable hours and are working in bigger cities where, you know, the demand for agency nurses, agency physiotherapists is higher. The reason why I say in theory may have more skills is because sometimes in practice I may be working with an agency nurse and they have to mix a particular type of medication, or they have to do a particular type of task for the patient and they're unable to do it. So yeah, that's why I say in theory they have more tasks. I'm sure they know how to do it most of the time, but sometimes they just don't want to do it or don't feel comfortable doing it. I don't know, I'm not an agency nurse. But I hope in the future, very soon, I'm hoping to have an actual interview with an agency nurse just to get a better idea, not for me to become an agency nurse, but I'm hoping to interview someone on my channel or have a telephone conversation with someone on my channel just so that you guys can get a better idea of what an agency nurse is, what the role really involves. So if you'd like to see that video, make sure you give this video a like, please. It really supports this channel. Make sure you watch the ads and make sure you subscribe to this channel and visit nursingpersonalstatement.co.uk. That is where we give nursing specific academic support. The testimonials don't lie. Visit their website. I will leave a direct link in the description box below. Now, let's go through one advantage and one disadvantage of working as an agency nurse. We've already touched upon one advantage. There are plenty of advantages. I will do a separate video where I just go through a whole bunch of advantages and provide clarification on a whole bunch of disadvantages. But one advantage of working as an agency nurse, like I've already mentioned, is that they make considerably more money than regular nurses. And we already know that, not regular nurses, but they make a lot more money than salaried nurses who work within the NHS or who work with private organizations. We already know that nursing pay isn't where it needs to be. There's protests almost, you know, every week, every other day in terms of increase our pay, increase our pay, increase our pay, increase our pay. And some nurses are just protesting in a different way. They'll just leave the NHS trust or leave their private organization that they were working within, and they just choose to become agency nurses. So I can understand why people are, you know, leaving their regular NHS or private nursing jobs. Is because they're thinking, I could just make more money still doing what I went to university to do, still doing what I want to do, but just under a different contract. Like I said, agency nurses are registered nurses. The difference between an agency nurse and, you know, your typical salaried nurse is just the means by which they chose to be employed. One disadvantage of working as an agency nurse is that sometimes you can get a frosty reception. It's different from working as a salaried nurse when you're in the same location. As we've already mentioned, with agency nurses, they may spend one day at this hospital, the next day at this hospital, the next day at this hospital. It can be harder to build a rapport. And when you're going onto the wards where, you know, the nurses may only be paid maybe, I don't know, £17 an hour, £18 an hour, £19 an hour, and because you've been hired to, or because you've been contracted to work at that particular ward, very short-term notice, you may be being paid 25, 30, 40 pounds an hour, and everybody knows that you're doing the exact same job, but because you're working as an agency nurse, you're making more money. And sometimes that can lead to other nurses becoming spiteful, becoming upset, you know, becoming distant. So that's definitely one disadvantage of working as an agency nurse. I will be doing, like I've said, I will be doing another video where I just focus on all the advantages and all the disadvantages of working as an agency nurse, because trust me, there is a lot more than meets the eye. Don't let the high salary fool you, and at the same time, don't let the frosty reception that some agency nurses may experience, don't let that put you off from becoming an agency nurse if that's something that you were considering. So we've looked at what an agency nurse is, how much agency nurses make. We've also looked at the differences between an agency nurse and a salaried nurse, and I've also gone through one advantage and one disadvantage of working as an agency nurse. So make sure you subscribe, visit the links in the description box below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.